So it makes sense that you could use ChatGPT to write a nonfiction book, right? You just ask questions, it gives you answers, and you can start using that for your outlines, your descriptions, your titles, lots of different stuff, right? So, but could it create something like maybe writing a book on investing or gardening or cooking, a cookbook? You know, these are things that are out there in the universe, so to speak. But what about something that's very creative, like a fiction book, something that's really kind of creative? Can it help us with that? If we've got some basic ideas, can it help us with outline or help putting that together? Well, let's take a look and see, and you might be very surprised on what it can do and maybe what it can't do. Okay, I'm over here at ChatGPT, and I've got maybe an idea for a book, a fiction book, and I'm going to put in, and if you're thinking about maybe writing a fiction book, think about how you might use this yourself. So I'm just going to first start to try to get kind of a little bit of an outline, right? So let's say I have a fiction book, and let's say it's a murder mystery, right? So, you know, could you help outline for me a murder mystery book? And I might want to, I mean, that's pretty broad, right? I want to, you know, I might have some ideas. I need to have some more ideas. So let's narrow this down a little bit, right? So it's a murder mystery book that takes place at a ski resort that is snowed in by an avalanche. We'll fix that up later. And let's say characters, there are 15 characters, and they die one by one. All right, I don't know, this may be getting a little weird now, but let's just start with that. I'm really just playing with this right here. But you can see, like, oh, wait a minute. All right, so this is complete fiction, right? I mean, I don't know of a real life story this is, or a true crime. You know, maybe there is, so what do I know, right? All right, so here we go. It's off and running. We're off and running already. So here's a basic outline for a murder mystery set in a ski resort, snowed in by avalanche. Story opens with the introduction of the 15 characters, right? So now you want to develop your characters, and maybe that you can use ChatGPT to help you write about a character or start discovering a character. So they're going to settle in their accommodations, hit the slopes. Oh my gosh, then there's an avalanche trapping them at the resort. Tensions rise and resources dwindle. Oh, look at that. That's interesting. Such as being, people are murdered in various ways, in different ways, poisoned, stabbed, suffocated. Oh, wow. Isn't this the kind of course you want to sign up for, right? One by one, they are murdered in a variety of ways. As the body count rises, main characters begin to suspect each other. Well, I would think so. And as the group becomes more paranoid, the killer strikes again, leaving only a few characters left. In the final act, the true killer is revealed, like in all true crime, or all mystery, not true crime, true mystery, and their motives for the murders are uncovered. And then the story concludes with them being rescued and the killer brought to justice, right? So I just took, like, I have this idea where it might be, and then I can use this outline to kind of now really be creative and shape my thoughts, right? And change it, right? Maybe I don't want them murdered in a variety of ways. Maybe I want them all murdered in the exact same way, because that's going to reach to my conclusion. Let's say they're all murdered by, oh, I'm sorry for the goriness of this, but let's say by an ice pick, right? I mean, it's taking place at a ski resort. You know, let's say I want the ChatGPT to help develop one of the characters for me. There's 15 of them. Let's say, could you describe the character of Jean, who is a ski instructor with a dark secret? Maybe I might want to give what the dark secret is, but she is, this is really just helping me get ideas, right? I have to figure out what the dark secret is. Did I really need to spell check dark? Did I really do that? All right, so I did. So you can see now it's not my gig, right? So sure, here's a brief description of the character named Jay, who's Jane is skilled and experienced, and on the surface she appears friendly, but however she's got this dark secret, right? So this is has a troubled past. Okay, so it's saying struggle with addiction, right? So you could change that. She's got this troubled past where maybe she was, some other traumatic thing. Her parents were killed in a hurricane, something just terrible. Or maybe her parents were killed in an avalanche. So there's something that you could build on, right? As Here the addiction, the drug use becomes more dire, you know. So that's interesting how it's building this out. So I could build out 15 different characters this way and start really building upon this. By the way, I've never written a fiction book. I'm going off this because I love to read. I read every night and I understand some things about it, but see how ChatGPT is really helping me here. And it's not writing the book for me, it's helping me to kind of start building out characters, building out more, and changing characters, changing plot lines, you know, changing, you know, how this is all going. And with the original questions that I asked, instead of a ski resort, it could be a beach resort, it could be at a mansion, it could be whatever, right? So here I have my basic outline. I'm getting some, you know, some character development here, and I can keep going through each of these sections, you know, as far as, you know, how I might want to build that out or get some ideas around that, right? So I could say with chapter 3, they start to, so let's look at chapter 3 here. So in chapter 3, as tensions rise and resources, one of the group starts to turn on each other. So I could say, could you give me, let's say tensions, right? Tension, and there's, you know, examples of how they may turn on each other in non-lethal ways, because we know the killer's out there somewhere, but everybody's turning each other. Non-lethal ways in chapter 3, right? So I can then take these examples, come up with my own, build on these examples, and really start fleshing out my book. Again, it's not writing the book for me, it's becoming more, it's helping me organize my thoughts, organize my book. So it's talking about resources become scarce. They may be starting to hoard food, right? So that's one thing they could do, turning at each other. They're hoarding food. And they're suspecting each other for hoarding resources. Maybe there's confrontations and accusations. Maybe two lovers turn on each other. Maybe two turn against one of these strangers they have. All sorts of things. You know, they're playing psychological games, such as spreading rumors, manipulating each other, right? So this is all, I've never written a murder mystery, but this is sounding, I don't know, it's sounding pretty good. You know, I'll never write this book, but if you're somebody struggling with writer's block, or you want to think about, how can I just get started? ChatGPT can really help you. This is where AI is helping you. And it's not plagiarism. It's not copying and pasting from another author. It's giving you ideas based around the learning that AI has done and, you know, typical type things that are out there. It is not atypical for characters in a murder mystery to turn on each other, especially if they're trapped somewhere. An island, a ship at sea, or stranded at a ski resort with an avalanche. So then I can keep building out my outline and building out my story. This is all made up. This is all a fiction story, right? All right, so now let's say I want a title. That's after I build it out, or maybe a lot of people just start with the title, but let's say I want a title, right? And as after I build up my book. So, you know, I could say, could you give me a title for this book, right? Oh, I should have said that's too broad. I should have said, could you give me 7, you know, examples of a title, you know, on this book? But it's doing it anyways. In fact, it's giving me a lot of titles. You know, it's like Murder at the Ski Resort, Buried in Snow. Oh, I like that one. Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies. I like that one. Fatal Descent, The Killing Frost. I mean, these are pretty good, don't you think? I mean, Trapped in Snow, a murder mystery, yeah, I'm not so sure about that. Avalanche, I don't know. But, you know, Death on the Mountain sounds like a, you know, one of those bad Disney movies. Or Frozen in Fear, that could be like a Frozen movie from Disney. But I like that, you know, Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies, right? So let's say I like that one. And if I didn't like this, these are a few suggestions. I could ask it, could you give me 7 more, all right? Let's say I just want to keep asking until I start getting the things, or I could tell it to regenerate, or I could do different things. So now I'm getting some different things. I could take Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies, and I said, could you give me examples based on that title? You know, and there we go, right? So now I got some nice titles. So let's say I take Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies. All right, I guess I like that one. By the way, you might like a different one. That's okay, because you're the author. You can like what you want, right? And you can even, like, you know, if you've got an email list or something like that, you could take, like, hey, these are 3 titles I'm looking at for my next fiction book. Send it out to your email list. Send it out to people who bought your book before, or people you know. Which one do you like best? And get some feedback on it. ChatGPT is just helping you here. So let's say I've got, you know, buried in Snow, Buried in Lies. And now I have my book. and I say, and I want to write a description for my book, right? So if you looked at the nonfiction lesson ahead of this, the title is what grabs attention. The book cover is what first grabs attention, and then the title grabs attention and decides whether you want to look further, and it's the description that'll make somebody maybe want to buy that book or pick up that book. So we need a really good description. Descriptions, spend time on. They're very important. I've never written a fiction book, so I've never written a fiction book description. I'm going to write now. I'm going to do it with ChatGPT. So I'm going to ask it to write like you have in the back of a book cover or description of the book. And I'm going to say, could you, because I'm friendly, could you please, because it's so important, could you please, of course can't spell, write a description for the book called Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies, enter. Right, I'm just hitting the enter key, by the way, when I do this. So here's a brief description of the book, right? Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies is a gripping murder mystery set in a remote ski resort with a group of friends and strangers are trapped, and so on, right? You can read this as it goes. So here I have a nice little description, but I'm going to show you something here once it's done. A little trick on this, or a little, best practice or another idea that you can do with this. It's kind of a longer description, actually, which is good, because then I can cut it or, adjust it however I want. But it says, it's, good start. It's a gripping murder mystery. Good start and good end, right? Buried in Snow will keep you guessing until the very end, right? So what do people want in a murder mystery book? I want to get gripped. I want to get into it. And then I want to be guessing until the end and see if I guess right? So I want to see if I guess right. So, and then you have all the other stuff. People are being poised, stabbed, suffocated, all sorts of gruesome stuff if you want that in there. But you edit this to what you want. All right, so now let's say I took this, and I said, could you write Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies? Right, so I just did that. But let's adjust this a little bit. I'm going to say, here's the description. It's the same thing. I copied and pasted. Could you write the description? Now I'm going to ask it in a style. In the style, I'm going to ask it a couple different ways, but let's start with a famous one of Agatha Christie, right? You can probably already, I'm not sure if I'm spelling her name right too, excuse me, Agatha Christie fan, so sorry. I've read one of her books, Death on the Nile. That's about it. Saw the movie too, both of them actually. And it's going to see what it does here. So it's going to give me a description of this. So I'm not plagiarizing Agatha Christie. I'm writing a description in her style. And I'm going to actually write another one in a completely different style here in a second, so you can kind of see the difference. So he talks about Agatha Christie. What's she famous, right? Classic murder mystery. So now we got classic murder mysteries, in a remote snowy mountain. And it kind of goes on to that. One by one, the guests of the resorts fall victim to a ruthless killer who seems to have a personal vendetta. Very Agatha Christie-like. If you start thinking about this book I'm kind of outlining, if you're familiar with the Agatha Christie book, it's had different titles, and Then There Was None. If you look up And Then There Was None, it basically takes place, I think it's in a mansion, and people die off one by one, and you're trying to figure out who it is before the killer strikes again. So that's And Then There Was None, right? So that's written in this kind of Agatha Christie classic, vendettas, all that kind of stuff, right? Format. Now let's say I want to take that same thing and okay, I'm not copying her, I'm just writing a description in her style. Now let's take it in a different style. Now instead of Agatha Christie, I want to write it as a style of Stephen King, right? Well, he doesn't write murder mysteries too much. He's more of a horror person, right? So let's see if that changes that, or how that might change that description. Again, I'm not copying his work. This is not one of his works. It's a description written in that style, right? So here you can see Buried in Snow, Buried in Lies is a chilling horror thriller. Right? It's a chilling horror thriller. What was Agatha Christie? I'm going back up here. A classic murder mystery. Stephen King, this is a chilling horror thriller, And one of the characters are brutally murdered. It's not that they're just killed or murdered. This is getting brutal. And it's almost, it's almost too gruesome to imagine, right? It's too much. So it's because it's written as written by, like in a Stephen King thing. It becomes clear that, oh, that's great here. There's spirits in here, looks like. As the story unfolds, it becomes clear that the spirits are not the only thing to fear in the resort, right? So this is kind of like The Shining a little bit, maybe, right? So, if you're familiar with The Shining, there you go. I'm mixing all sorts of genres. But now I'm going. I'm writing on this, and we could keep doing more. You could do one like I will do one more for my wife. My wife likes Nora Roberts, right? Nora Roberts, who is a romance writer. She writes romance books. She actually writes murder mystery under a pen name called J.D. Robb. So if you know Nora Roberts, like she writes her stuff, yeah, look for J.D. Robb. She writes murder mysteries. But let me put it as Nora Roberts as a romance author, giving me a description from a romance author. Maybe I might break ChatGPT asking this. It'd be better off writing it as J.D. Robb. Actually. But you can see the whole point of this is I'm asking it to do things, in styles, not copying, pasting, or plagiarizing. So here's the brief description of the thing in the style of Nora Roberts. Barry is a romantic suspense novel. Okay, so you get the idea, right? And so if you have a favorite author or you're trying to, be in a certain subgenre of a genre, murder mystery is a big genre. We just wrote 3 descriptions for 3 different subgenres: Agatha Christie classic, Stephen King horror, Nora Roberts romantic suspense novel, right? So using ChatGPT can help us with this, and then we're still going to write the novel, but you see how it's really helping me move quickly, right? Helps me to write a better title, helps me to write a really better description that I can both adjust, helps me to flesh out the characters or try different things. So if you want to write, let's say, fiction books, and those are ones that you can give away for free if you want, because you sell other things or whatever, but for fiction, maybe you're looking to do something where you're going to sell the book on Kindle or whatever, or maybe get published by a big publishing house. So as you can see, they're still going here. ChatGPT in my description, as the story unfolds, killers, not only the thing to fear in the resort, all that stuff, right? So you can see ChatGPT with artificial intelligence is really, really helpful. So if you're a fiction writer and you feel stuck, try ChatGPT on the things you're stuck on, and that might help get you unstuck and help you with your writing.